All right, you're going to want to hear this one. We're about to break down the story of an e-commerce brand that, had it all. We're talking explosive growth, massive profits, everyone was buzzing about them. But then, in just 1 year, it all came crashing down. And this isn't just another failure story. No, this is a powerful case study in what not to do when you hit it big.
So let's just put a number on this success. At its peak, this brand, Calming Blankets, was an absolute machine. They were pulling in over $10 million in annual sales. That's a staggering figure for a business that started with basically nothing.
But here's the twist. Just as fast as it shot up, it came plummeting down. The company went from millions in the bank to losing over $1 million in a single brutal year. Just an absolutely shocking turn of events.
So yeah, that's the big question, right? How on earth does something like this happen? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to unpack the specific mistakes that turned this incredible dream into, well, a total cautionary tale.
But before we get to the disaster, you have to understand the high points, because this wasn't just some flash in the pan. For a while there, this business was a true juggernaut. And just look at the speed of this thing. In its very first year of operation, the company cleared $1.5 million in pure profit. The next year, boom, it jumped to $2.5 million. This is what you call hyper-growth. It's the kind of thing every entrepreneur dreams of. And this, right here, shows you how dominant they were. They pulled off something that most brands can only fantasize about. Their brand name became the product category. Like people say Kleenex instead of tissue, or Google instead of search engine. People weren't just buying a weighted blanket, they were buying a calming blanket. This success was so real, so undeniable, that the founder got an offer to sell the whole thing for over $10 million. On paper, he'd made it. This was the dream realized. So, how did this whole thing even start? Well, to really feel the impact of that success, you have to know just how humble the beginnings were. This wasn't some fancy venture-backed company. No, this was a scrappy, bootstrapped operation from day one.
So, meet the founder, Davey Fogarty. At 23 years old, he was kind of the poster child for a struggling entrepreneur. He'd failed at university, he'd failed at a bunch of other businesses, he was living back home with his parents and had absolutely no money. He was literally on the verge of just giving up. And then, a little bit of luck. He saw a random Facebook post from a mom who was making weighted blankets for her kid. He looked at the comments, and they were just flooded with people asking, "Where can I buy one of these?" A quick search showed him that, hey, there's actual science backing this up for things like anxiety and sleep. The demand was obvious, and the product was legit. And the way he launched was incredibly lean. He actually couldn't find any suppliers on Alibaba, which he smartly took as a good sign. It meant he was early to the game. He scraped together just enough cash for one single sample, got his mom and girlfriend to be the models for a DIY photo shoot, and just threw up a basic Shopify store. This is the definition of bootstrapping. So he launches on a Saturday night with what he himself called the worst Facebook ads you've ever seen. And then it happened. That magic Shopify ka-ching notification for a sale. Then another one, and another. He did over $1,000 in pre-orders on the very first night. The idea was validated instantly. So he was on a rocket ship, right? But as we know, that rocket was about to hit a major asteroid field. Let's dig into the moment the dream started to turn into a nightmare.
And what's really insane is just how fast it all fell apart. Around October of 2020, the whole thing just flipped. The business went from making $500,000 in profit a month to losing over $1 million in the next year. It was a complete and total collapse.
So, the question is, why? Why did this happen? Well, after a pretty painful look in the mirror, the founder pinpointed 3 huge mistakes. This is really the heart of the story, the autopsy of the failure.
Okay, so mistake number 1 was all psychological. See, when you start making a ton of money, a funny thing happens. You become terrified of losing it. And that fear led to this frantic need to diversify, to build a safety net by launching a bunch of new businesses. But it turns out that was a trap.
And you can see the bad thinking right here. He got obsessed with this idea of synergy, this hypothetical future benefit from launching over 10 new brands. But in chasing that, he totally sacrificed the real, immediate benefits of just focusing on what was already working. He admits he was spending maybe an hour a week on his multi-million-dollar flagship brand. His finances became a total mess, and he just completely lost control.
Then there was mistake number 2, a total lack of product strategy. The thinking was,
hey, let's just launch new variations of the blanket. Bamboo ones, hand-woven ones, you name it. And that'll keep people coming back. But it actually did the exact opposite.
This table tells you everything you need to know. Just compare it to a competitor, the Udi, which, funnily enough, the same founder also created. Calming Blankets was just throwing endless, undefended variations at the wall. The Udi, on the other hand, had a laser-focused strategy, unique, licensed designs you couldn't get anywhere else. The result? The Calming Blankets brand got diluted, lost a ton of market share, and the Udi became the #1 seller.
And here's the final nail in the coffin: inventory mismanagement. It was a disaster. In e-commerce, cash is everything, and your inventory is your cash. They launched way too many new products without any good forecasting. That meant all their money was tied up in stuff that wasn't selling, while their actual best sellers were constantly out of stock. They literally couldn't sell the products that people wanted to buy. Man, it is a brutal story. But the whole point of breaking this down is to learn from it. So how do you turn $1 million loss into something priceless?
You know, the founder himself puts it perfectly with this quote: "Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's just part of the process. The real key is whether you learn from it, and that is exactly what he did."
So here it is, the 6 crucial lessons that came out of this whole mess. Number 1, manage your growth. Going too fast can be just as deadly as going too slow. 2, get your financial reporting locked down. 3, build a product strategy that your competitors can't just copy and paste. 4, structure and incentivize your team so they actually care about the outcome. 5, use that 80-20 rule to jump on the big problems fast. And finally, number 6, stay focused and stay humble. That wild goose chase for synergy almost sank the entire ship.
And that really brings us to our final thought. When you look back at this story, all the hype, the fear, that frantic scramble to grow at all costs, it's worth asking yourself, which one of these mistakes is the easiest trap for any ambitious founder to fall into? The answer might be a little closer to home than you think.